Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Logan Bailey.
Welcome to the NWO Sports Podcast, Football Edition, brought to you by primary sponsor 3Chord. I'm your host, Logan Bailey, and joined today by Keith Brown, Tony Fairchild, and AJ Fairchild is actually gone for his honeymoon now, so congratulations to him and his wife. But you may be wondering who this guy is sitting next to me right here, and that would be my brother Bryce, who's been involved with all the pick'em for the game. So thanks for joining us today, Bryce.
Yeah, I'm glad to finally be here in person, make my picks. I've been made fun of quite a bit for that, so I'm catching up, and we'll see if I can improve before the end of the season.
Just not a fictional person; he's actually real.
Yeah, he's a real person. So, and now we get a pick on him on the show, so that's a good thing. He's fresh meat for us.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether you're here or not, Bryce. We'll pick one either way.
Yeah.
All right, well, guys, week 9 is here, and playoffs are soon coming up. They're right around the corner, so a lot of big games coming up and a lot of make or breaks for teams and coming in this week. So, I feel like it's cliche. We keep saying it. I can't believe it's week 9 again. So, I mean, just keeps rolling one after the other, and it's going to probably be a pretty chilly one this Friday. I haven't looked at the weather yet, but I imagine it's probably cooling down.
Just curious. I haven't looked.
I think it's supposed to be in the mid-50s. For the high during the day, then kickoff mostly in the low 50s. So the next week, it's somebody's really turning the dial down. Highs are in the 40s. So
That's still not bad though. I mean, again, like if you're playing football, it's nice to be in the 40s, 50s. Yep. I mean, especially sweating out there, it's always nice to be a little cooler. I'd rather play in the cold than 95 degrees and 100% humidity. So.
It's 58 degrees for a high on Friday, so it might be a little chilly at game time.
Yeah. Well, we'll be inside this Friday, so we're not.
We're behind the high def glass.
Well, let's go ahead. Let's look at how we did for last week's picks, and looking at how we did. Keith and Tony tied last week, and they went 17-3 apiece. Keith regained the sole possession of first place with 124-34 total record on the year. AJ, unfortunately, dropped a second here with a 123-35 record, but Tony is also making a climb for the ranks, so he's tied for third with myself, and we both have 118-40 record. And again, Bryce is last with a 115-43 record, but again, he's only 3 games out behind me and Tony. So, Keith, what are your words of advice for? You got anything to say? I'll give you a little spotlight.
It was a good week. I mean, couple upsets we picked and didn't come through. Defiance kind of let down everybody this week, but Coach Cooper, he'll have everybody rebound. But it was a good week for all of us.
And I'll give Bryce a chance to give a little rebuttal. What do you have to say about being in last place, Bryce?
I'm just here to make my picks, and I try to keep it interesting sometimes. It's not always the best strategy, but it's for the views, I guess.
You're a man of the people. I know you are. A man of certain teams, that's for sure, too. So
there's some teams I do not pick against. So.
AJ just texted me, and he said I kind of put his picks in for him. He's like, I agree with everything that's there. So he is paying attention from Cancun.
All right, good deal.
Horrible weather, I'm sure, in Cancun.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
We're talking about maybe a hurricane coming across or something like that. That'd be perfect timing.
That wouldn't be nice. So. All right, guys, let's go ahead. Let's look at some Week 8 game recaps, and we'll kick her off with the NWO Sports Game of the Week from Week 8 here. And looking at Antwerp at Ayersville, and what a big clash there with 2 of the top teams and then the GMC. And this was a fight and battle for the sole possession of the GMC. So Antwerp ended up winning that game 35-24, but I mean, again, it's a huge win for Antwerp, and they take sole possession of the GMC with this win. And if you look at the rushing stats from that game between Antwerp and Ayersville, they were nearly identical. And Antwerp rushed for 191 yards on 36 carries, and Ayersville rushed for 185 yards on 30 carries. But, I mean, you look at the difference, and the passing stats for Antwerp and quarterback Carson Altimus were absolutely dominated the passing game. As far as that went, Altimus was 19-28, 69% completion percentage, 234 passing yards. He threw in 2 passing touchdowns. But not only that, and we've kind of talked before too, and talking with Tony about containing Altimus, that would be a big key for a lot of teams. Yep. He had 17 carries, 116 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and he added 4 total for the game. But then looking on the flip side, a kid that's really impressed me over the last few weeks is wide receiver Abe Delano from Ayersville. And this dude is a touchdown and yardage machine. I mean, he had only 2 receptions, but he had 59 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. So, I mean, that's pretty good for only having a small sample size there. So, what are you guys' thoughts on this big game last week from the Green Meadows Conference?
Just seems like it was a battle in the first quarter. I went back and listened to the radio cast, and it sounded like it was a pretty good battle throughout the first quarter into the even to halftime. Then Antwerp just kind of pulled away. I guess we saw both teams, and even, I think I even said last week, this is like Antwerp. You're just going to have a special game plan to stop Ultimus and the offense of Antwerp. But Antwerp defense, Coach Hale definitely pulled out the stops to stop Hornstein, and it seems like Delano's kind of like Travis Kelce. He's going to have every time he touches the ball, it's going to be a touchdown.
Oh, I know.
For Ayersville. Yeah, he's very impressive for sure. So.
Yeah, I mean, just we talked about containing Carson Ultimus, and when he throws the ball well, and we always talk about that. But when he runs for over 100 yards too, it just makes it tough because a whole other aspect to try to contain. And I really thought Ayersville would do a better job of containing Carson Ultimus, which is why I picked him this past week. But it is what it is. I mean, it just. You got to contain that guy and keep him inside the pocket, and it didn't seem like Ayersville got that job done very well.
He averaged about 10 yards a carry, so I mean I guess you pick your poison there. Do you want to stop the pass or do you want to stop the run? And you probably have a rough time stopping both against Antwerp, and they moved up to number 2 in the state this week. So
I thought Ayersville would really do a better job up front against Antwerp than what they did. So.
Yeah, and that's something too. I mean, both teams have some good offensive and defensive linemen. You have like Kendrick Robinson and Sears Gale from Antwerp, but then you have guys like Brady Clark from Ayersville who, I mean, that's where you got to win the battles is up front too. And I thought looking at some team stats here, I thought this stat was really interesting is time of possession for the game. You look at Antwerp, 28 minutes and 20 seconds compared to the Pilots that had 18 minutes and 59 seconds. So what an excellent job at controlling the clock. I mean, It's hard, especially you get into a ball game where, I mean, if the opposition is just controlling that ball, you can't score points if you don't have the ball. So.
Right, and that's what we talked about when Sonora played Antwerp. Was sometimes your best weapon is to keep Antwerp's offense off the field and try to control the clock. And obviously Antwerp won the battle. But I looked down here also that one of the stats, they were 4 for 5 on 4th downs.
Wow, that's. I mean, if that's just a killer too. Yeah. I mean, you get to that 4th down, and if you're on the other team, you're thinking, "Oh man, we're getting a stop here. It's 4th down." You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I mean, if they get that's such huge momentum for your team if you can convert on 4th down. But I mean, again, like you said, I mean, they ended up winning the game. So, Bryce, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's kind of interesting that the turnaround Antwerp's school has made in football over the past few years. I don't think they've ever won a GMC conference championship, have they?
No, this will be their first. Yes, they do.
And they're in the front runner right now. So
and we talked about first couple of weeks of the season. They actually dropped football in 2016. Yeah. So I mean, you basically have 6 years to build your program back up, and started last year, I believe.
Well, that's because I think in my senior year, we didn't even end up playing Antwerp. I think we ended up having a bye week possibly, or we picked up a non-conference game. But still, like to go from not having, like we've talked about this before on the podcast, going from someone who. I mean, it's taken years for them to get to this point, but I think it's also interesting to see how you have programs, how it can take a few years to get to this point where they're being a dominant force. But then you look at like North Central, on the other hand, their very first year as a varsity football program, and they're going 6-2 already. So,
well, the progression that Antwerp made from we were 3-7 my freshman year, and we beat them pretty good, but now my senior year they. Right there the whole time with us, and then this year about to win the GMC.
And it's like with Antwerp, you've slowly seen them year after year, and Coach Hale over there has done such a nice job. And I think that, again, that all starts in the offseason. And you go ahead and you look at in the media and see Coach Hale's comments. They're having great turnouts for summer workouts. You're getting guys in the weight room. I mean, you're drawing in maybe some more kids that wouldn't have came out in the past because you are starting to get some more success. So I can't give Coach Hale and his coaching staff and all the guys over there enough credit. I mean, just to see what they've done in just a few years.
And winning's contagious. So if they can establish that culture, good things for Antwerp in the future.
Yeah, and they're not a big school to begin with, so I'm not sure what their average graduation class is, but I would assume it's not more than 70.
Yeah,
I mean,
probably not even that many.
Right.
But and also kudos to the school board over there and in the community for supporting Coach Hale as he takes the steps, and they're getting gradually better and better and better, to not bail on the guy and say, okay, you're not doing good enough fast enough,
right?
And kicking him to the curb, letting him just build his program, and it's turning around. It looks good for him.
And I really like that point, Tony. I was just talking the other day. You look at the college level right now. Look at everyone wants to win now, now. And if you're not winning, and even look at like Wisconsin's coach Paul Chryst. I mean, he's had a dominant program.
Yep.
I mean, look at how good what Wisconsin has been over the years. And they fired him, and I was like, what in the world? I mean, just because he has 1 year, that's down a little bit.
Right.
I mean,
Matt Rule.
Yeah, even him too. So, but yeah.
And it's it's one of those things where I call it the microwave mentality. You want it now. You want it hot. You want it now.
Yeah.
And so you throw it in a microwave, and in a minute I should have it. And so sometimes it takes a little while to develop that program and get it to where it needs to be.
Exactly. And on the flip side, looking at Ayersville, I mean, Coach Mickey over there is doing a nice job in his first year, too.
Right.
So, I mean, in a sense, that almost is kind of like a microwave.
It absolutely is.
Because Ayersville hasn't had some success. I believe last year they made the playoffs, was 2016? And, I mean, as of right now, I would say they're probably pretty close to clinching a playoff spot, just with the way they've played this year. All right, let's go ahead. Let's move to the next game here. Delta at Wauseon, and wow, is this game a thriller. Wauseon ended up winning 7-3, and the game winner was a touchdown with a 61-yard hookup from Wauseon quarterback Trey Parson to wide receiver Tyson Rodriguez, and there was only 1:28 left in the game. Just looking at some other stats here, Wauseon had -14 rushing yards, which I thought that was kind of interesting, but we've also seen them play, and we can understand that. I mean, they're a true passing offense. But Tyson Rodriguez, again, he had quite the game, had 5 receptions, 92 receiving yards, a receiving touchdown that sealed the game. And I thought this was interesting too. We saw him play firsthand on defense too, against the Sonora Rams. But this game, he led the team in tackles on defense with 10. So kudos to him. And I mean, he's a good athlete, and we know that. A couple other key points I had here. Linebacker Austin Kovar for Wauseon. I think he's a guy in the area on defense that continues to impress me. Every game I see, he's always adding sacks and tackles for loss, and is just a menace and leader on that that Wauseon defense. But this game, he had 8.5 tackles, 1 sack, and 3 tackles for loss. So, I mean, that's huge, especially when you're playing a good team like Delta. So, what are your guys' thoughts on this game?
I just look at you look at the stats, and I mean, Delta didn't get anything. They ran the ball pretty well, but I mean, you look at the pass; they had 18 passing yards, so they didn't throw the ball at all. And I can't really say anything. It's kind of the flip the other way with Wauseon. They had -14 rushing yards, so and 248 passing yards. So it's just kind of two different animals there. Two different animals you're watching every time Delta get the ball. They're running the ball. But man, just a good game. I mean, I wish I could have seen that game.
I know. I would have liked to see it. I mean, you win a game basically with a walk-off touchdown with a little over a minute left. I mean, that's got to be exciting. I can only imagine the Wauseon crowd over there at a home game just cheering on their players.
Obviously, a defensive battle. I mean, you're 0-0 in the first quarter. You're not scoring. You come out after halftime, still not getting anything to go, and then all of a sudden, one play, and all of a sudden you got the lead. So, I mean, kudos to Wauseon's defense for holding Delta out of the end zone.
Yeah, if you're Coach Moore, I mean, ever since the quarterback switch, you haven't lost a game, even though this was a low-scoring game. And on the flip side, Delta, I think they're still one of the few teams that still run the wing T, if I remember. I mean, obviously, just by looking at stats, they were 1 of 4, so apparently they still do. So I could be wrong, but I believe they're still one of the few that still run that offense. But yeah, heck of a game, and good old fashioned slugfest over there at Wauseon.
Yeah. I mean, like Tony said, I would have loved to be at that game. I think that would have been a good one to see. Yep. I mean, I feel like those two teams, it really shows how much Delta's improved from last year to this year. Last year they go 4-6 this year and made the 16 seed in the playoffs. And this year they're 5-3 now. So, I mean, they're kind of turning things around over there. But to match up with a program like Wauseon, who is typically toward one of your top teams in the NWAL, I mean, Delta's making a name for themselves, and they're not a team to mess around with. let's go ahead here. Let's move on to the next game. Looking at Salina at Defiance. Defiance ended up losing that game 15-7, and but Defiance had their chances throughout the game. I mean, you look at it, Defiance and the Bulldogs had 3 turnovers compared to Salina, who had 0, and they just couldn't catch a break. You know, they drove down the field on multiple occasions, and they had a fumble here, a penalty there that just hurt them so much, and it didn't allow them to put points on the board. I mean, and I was talking to Keith earlier too. I mean, when you drive down and you get into the red zone, you got to punch points on the board. I mean, you can't come up with nothing and let up a turnover. But again, that ended up. I mean, that was the story of the game. Is Defiance had their chances to win it or at least put some more points on, but again, they just couldn't. They couldn't get it done. But on the other side, I think Defiance is they're probably out by now to host a home game for the playoffs. But they still definitely have a high chance to make the playoffs this year. I mean, even if you win one of the next 2, I mean, you have Ottawa Glandorf, which is a very winnable game, and then Wapakoneta Week 10. But anyhow, what were your guys' thoughts on the Salina and Defiance game?
I guess looking at the Defiance perspective, you're probably it's homecoming weekend. You know, you got a big crowd on hand, and he is just hate to say you laid an egg. I mean, because Defiance outgained them by close to 100 yards, they just couldn't put the ball in the end zone and get points on the board. So it's just a disappointing. I mean, for the whole Defiance program, are probably disappointing, and should bounce back this week versus OG, but. Yeah, if you're Coach Cooper, even he said, I apologize, I got out-coached and whatnot, which is a pretty stand-up job for him to say that. But, yeah, just come in blazing hot, then all of a sudden, which Salina is a quality team. It's not like, they weren't playing, a team that was coming in with 2 wins. I mean, they both were equally matched. And we just figured the way Defiance has been playing the last month that, they should have, got the victory, but they just – one of those games where nothing goes right, apparently, and that was last Friday night for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, just reading kind of through the game recap, it looks like Defiance had their opportunity. I mean, they had the ball, and kind of looked like the game kind of ended on a penalty. It sounds like, on a sack that wiped out the possible first down. That, like you said, Logan, coming away with no points when you drive down in the red zone is, kind of hurtful. And it looks like they did that in the first half. They drove down and with 1:10 left, it says in the first half, and then got to the Salina 11-yard line, and then came away with 0 points. And I'm not sure what happened, if they, tried to push it in the end zone and just ran out of time or what. But when you're, like you said, when you're in the red zone, you got to try to get points, especially at this level. You want at least 3, and if you get 3 points, it changes the game big time there at the first half. Now you're down 7. It'd be 15-10, and so it changes the game a little bit on how you call plays. And it's unfortunate for Defiance to lose that one. I think we all picked Defiance to win, and like I said, it was kind of a shocker. Thought they would be able to take care of Salina, but again, like we've always said before, that's why they play the games, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Something that stands out to me is Defiance had 3 fumbles, although they recovered all of them, but that can be a major momentum shifter in a game and kind of swing the.
Yeah, that can be a drive killer.
Yeah, it can.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's something too. I mean, though Defiance lost this game, I think if you're Coach Cooper, I mean, you go back, you got to rally the troops, and you got to take this film and be critical of yourself. And I mean, you see his comments after the game that he's very critical of his offensive and defensive lines, and he flat out said that they lost in the trenches. Yep. I mean, that's where it starts up front. It starts up front, and I mean, everyone and their brother will say that. I mean, if you're not playing good up front, it makes everything else a lot harder. So I think if the players can take this criticism from the coaches and take those learning points and they can flip it around, it's almost not bad, I would say, that they have a late loss, because if you're Defiance, you've been riding really high these last few weeks. Yep. I mean, this is the best that they've done in a long time. I feel like it's almost a reality check, and it kind of puts things in perspective. It says, Coach Cooper says to the kids, look, we are still beatable. I mean, gives you that reminder, but I think it's not a bad thing that they necessarily have a loss just a couple weeks before playoffs, because, I mean, you get down to it, your games are going to be close, and it just shows how much the little things matter. And, I mean, if they can pick up on those, I think Defiance will be pretty good these next couple weeks and going into the playoffs.
Right. Sometimes I guess you can get just a little too far over your skis, and maybe you think your confidence is a little bit higher than what it should be. Not that Defiance came into that game, because I'm sure Coach Cooper keeps everybody on a level keel.
Oh, I'm sure.
You don't get too high or too low, but inside you're still going into the game thinking, hey, we're playing pretty good, and we're just going to come out here and kick some butt, and all of a sudden the kickoff comes and it's not the case.
Yeah.
So.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's move on to the next game here. And this one was a shootout, and it was actually the game that we've covered so far this year for combined for the most points for 112. And that game was St. Paul at Eden. St. Paul ended up coming away with a 60-52 win. And the next closest game that we saw this year was Van Wert and the St. Mary's game that had 111 total combined points. But I was just looking at this and some of the stats I couldn't believe coming from Eden's side. Quarterback Kyler Sapp, he was 36 of 49, 73% completion percentage, 539 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns. He also had 11 carries for 94 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and 7 total touchdowns for the game. And then you look at a couple wide receivers, Caden Nestor, 13 receptions, 156 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and he had an extra point. Wide receiver Carter Keese, 12 receptions, 139 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and he also had 19 tackles on defense, which if you're going to score a lot of points, there's probably going to be a lot of tackles too. So, but that's a lot. And then linebacker Cohen Halbert, he also had 19 tackles, and he was just all over the field as a linebacker. So I was pretty impressed, and I believe, I couldn't find it, but for St. Paul, I thought they had a running back that he just went off to for their offense. So anyways, what were your guys' thoughts on this shootout here?
Well, I can't imagine seeing the stats for St. Paul. If you look at Kyler Sapp's number, how you like to be poor Kyler Sapp, where you throw for 539 yards, rush for close to 100, and you walk away with a loss. It's like, man, oh man. I mean, this would be a fun game to play in.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, if you lose, it's disappointing, but heck, I mean, you probably had a heck of a time out there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and I believe it was like neck and neck throughout the whole game. So, I mean, that's got to be a good atmosphere, too. And I believe last year this game was really close as well, and I can't remember exactly if Eden came away with the win or not. But regardless, I think I like seeing this matchup the last couple of years, and I think it's a good challenge for Eden. So,
man, oh man, I tell you, like you said, Keith, 539 passing yards, 5 touchdowns. Wow. I remember we talked when Van Wert did that. They went crazy with stats too. But like you said, you do that, but you came away with a loss. It's
right.
Man, oh man.
Yeah, I think honestly that performance by Kyler Sapp probably almost topped Eden Pratt's from Van Wert's. I believe he had a little bit more yards and might have tied him for total touchdowns. But again, a very impressive performance by everyone involved. I mean, it's just a bummer if you're on Eden to come away with a loss, but still. It shows your potential on offense, and we've said it time and time and again. That Bob Olin offense can throw some points on the board, and they can light it up, and that's for sure. So
you took the words from my mouth, Logan. It's like if you're in the Eden football program, you're really never going to have a boring game.
No.
I mean, you may come out on the short end on some of them, but every single game is, 52 points and you lose. I mean,
there's not too many games. It's safe to say that the Eden Bombers will have where they score 0 points.
No.
Unless you play a powerhouse, Eden's at least going to find gold and find the red zone and a touchdown at least once a game. So. Bryce, do you have any comments on this game?
I'm sure that was even frustrating for St. Paul, just knowing that they allowed 52 points to be scored in a game. It's a lot of things to get fixed in the postseason coming up.
Yeah. I think if you're both teams, again, I mean, this is another kind of tune-up almost for the playoffs. And, I feel like there's one of two ways you can go with a lot of schedules. It's like either the last half of the season, you play a gauntlet, or the last half you write a cupcake schedule. And it's like, I'd rather probably play that gauntlet just to prep me to play against some of these good teams because, I mean, you play an easier schedule to end the season. And I think there's a lot of teams that will sneak up on you come playoff time.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's look at the next game here. Hilltop at North Central. Finally is the first game that we got to see North Central play like a local team. So kind of nice to see and how they compare because we've seen other teams play Hilltop. North Central won that game 56-0, and North Central is another team in the area, kind of like Delta, that runs the ball. And they had 257 total rushing yards, and they only had one pass the entire game. But running back Joe Burt, That man is a beast, and he had 17 carries, 153 rushing yards, 9 yards a carry, 3 rushing touchdowns. And running back Cameron Laney had a touchdown pass, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns on the day too. So I mean, that 1-2 duo of Burt and Laney, they're getting it done over there in North Central. So what are you guys' thoughts on this game here?
They had 1 pass the entire game and threw it for a touchdown.
Yeah, that's what I saw.
I guess if you're going to throw one, you might as well throw it in the end zone, I guess. But
I'm curious to see what that 1 pass play was. You know, yeah. I if I had to bet money, I would wonder if it'd be like almost like a play action because, I mean, if you're running the ball every single time and you run a play action, those linebackers, defensive backs are going to bite hard on that. Right. So if I had to bet money, that's what I would guess. But I could be wrong too. So
just good for North Central. I mean, they're obviously they've got things going this year for them, and it's going to be awesome. I really do believe they're going to make the playoffs, unless they just get totally wiped out the last 2 weeks. But what a great feat for the first year of a program to make the playoffs. That's awesome.
Keith or Bryce?
I just feel bad for Hilltop every once in a while. I talked to a kid on their baseball team a few years ago, and their numbers have always been down, and he tore his ACL like halfway through the season. He still had to play, so it's just kind of sad for Hilltop.
And that's like we saw. At least we saw this year Hilltop did break their losing streak that they had for the last couple of years. But I mean, as a program, and Keith and I have talked about it before. I mean, even though if you're having a losing season and things aren't going right, still go out there, have fun. I mean, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Most of these kids will never get to go on to play football again.
Right.
And the bonds and relationships you make on the football team are second to none because it's a different type of feeling when you're getting guys together. You can rely on this guy, and there's so many other things that lessons you learn outside of football, and it really builds a great person.
Yes, Hilltop, on the flip side, as Bryce said, it sucks, and we talked about it throughout our podcast. If you're on that flip side and you're getting your butt beat every night, 49-0, 56-0, North Central is actually, you look at them, is something to look forward to, I guess. Hey, which we talked about last week. I think it was probably off air, actually. But back we'll probably date ourselves a bit. Back when me and Tony were in high school, Hilltop, similar to Montpelier, was one of the better teams around.
Right.
I mean, they actually had a really good football program back in the 80s and 90s. Yeah. So it's just a matter of, getting the talent to play football and have everybody just mesh together like North Central has this season.
And we talked about too, even like your smaller schools, they make their rounds. I mean, you have times where you get a really good couple of classes that line up just right, and you get some good athletes, and it's just a lot of it's timing too.
Which is the case with Antwerp, quite honestly. I mean,
really.
If Carson Ultimus wasn't there, would Antwerp be number 2 team in the state? I mean,
I mean, you even look at like when I was at Tenora. I mean, we had a group of really good kids that I was kind of coming through. I was very fortunate for even when I was a freshman. We've always had winning records, but then once our kind of classes kind of left, the program went down a little bit, but then now it picked back up again. So I mean, it happens all over. So it's just you hope for Hilltop's sake that they can get some kids to come out, maybe increase their numbers, and they can make some stuff happen. But again, good game by North Central. And Hilltop, keep your heads up and keep on playing hard. So
and Hilltop's been just kind of looking at their schedule here. They've been taking it on the chin until the week in and week out. Other than the week that they won, it's been not pretty.
And you almost wonder too if they drop out of because I believe they're in the TAC, right? Or do they? I'm trying to remember.
I think I'm not sure.
Not sure. They don't really play anybody. I mean, they're kind of all over there. Edgerton, Antwerp, North Baltimore, Otto Hills, Northwood, Eden, North Central. I'm not sure what conference they're in by who they play.
Because that's the thing that the TAC's a little bit weird when it schedules a conference. But regardless, I almost wonder if it would benefit them more to play not have a conference and be more of an independent, like a North Central, where you can schedule some teams across the area. I mean, the bad thing is the traveling and the expenses could probably be up a little bit, but at least you could get maybe some teams that are more competitive for your program and give it some time to kind of progress. So,
just looking right now, North Central's 10th as far as computer points, so they're in the playoffs by 8 seed. So
that's pretty good. So let's go ahead. Let's move on. A couple other games here. Next game, Archbold at Swanton. Threw this game in here just because we haven't talked about these programs a lot lately. Archbold ended up winning 42-14, and Archbold sealed another dominating win in the conference play. Running back Carson Dominic again proves himself to be one of the best running backs in Northwest Ohio. He had 167 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. And again, quarterback Cade Brenner for Archbold has also done a nice job at quarterback. Kind of ran into a rough spot a little bit here and there against some of your tougher teams, but he's been consistent, and he threw 9 of 12 for 161 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns. And then for Swanton, a new name kind of popped up for me and popped up on the radar is running back Camon Molina. And he really showcased his talent in the game. He had 9 carries, 142 rushing yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. So, I mean, that's a pretty good performance. I know Swanton lost, but at least it shows that they have some potential on their team. So what are you guys' thoughts on this game?
Archbold just keeps proving that they're still their contender. They haven't gone anywhere. They got beat by Liberty Center, but they're still showing that they're somebody to be dealt with.
And even in that game, looking at stats, I mean, they put up 450 yards of total offense. And if I'm willing to bet that they probably got a lot of their starters out in the second half because they put up 21 in the first quarter, 14 in the second, and they held Swanton scoreless. So, that's another impressive stat from them.
Yeah, they've had 3 straight games where they scored 40 points and a couple tough games coming up to close out the season. It's kind of a pre-playoff prep. But, yeah, Coach Dominic and the Streaks definitely getting hot at the right time.
Yeah, that's good. And I that's something, too. I think Coach Dominic over at Archbold does things the right way. And even after losing a tough matchup to a very good Liberty Center team, he made sure those kids were still focused on the mine at hand. Look, we dropped a tough loss, but, there's still a rest of the regular season and there's playoffs. So, you look at last year, Archbold got Liberty Center in the regular season, but Liberty Center ended up beating them in the playoffs. So, who knows? Maybe the way things play out, maybe Archbold and Liberty Center could possibly match up sometime. So wouldn't that be interesting? That would be like a part 4 of this series. You had regular season last year between the two. You had playoffs, and then you had regular season this year. And then if you had playoffs, man, that would be a good game to be at.
Just looking right now, LC is 1 and Archbold is 6.
Okay.
In that tough region. So, it could have happened.
There's
round 2.
There's still a lot that could happen, but man, wouldn't that be interesting? Yeah. I would definitely want to go to that game.
That'd be great.
What would you say earlier? Something about maybe Rocky 4 kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. Is like Rocky's, like the Rocky movies, that just keep on happening, and they're good battles for most of the games. So, Bryce, do you have any comments?
Yeah, anytime Archbold and Liberty Center play, it's going to be a good game. I remember last year in the playoffs when they kicked that field goal, Carly Roth, me and you listened to that on the radio. Mm-hmm. Just came in at the right moment. It's always close. It's neck and neck all the time.
Yeah, and I think, again, if you're Swanton on the other side, similar situation to Hilltop, you got to keep plugging away, keep going out there, giving it your all. It's not the most enjoyable to go out and take a loss each week, but again, keep your heads high. It definitely teaches you the game of football. I cannot express how much it teaches you. I could go on and on about all the lessons that I've learned from playing the sport, but again, it's very enjoyable, and it definitely builds you to be a great man and productive member in society. So
awesome.
Yeah, I just looked at the stats. It looks like Swanton, they ran for a bunch of yards, but it looks like most of it happened in the second half, if I'm looking at it right. I was kind of it caught my eye that looking at the team stats. Archbold had 35 rushing attempts for 243 yards. Swanton had 34 rushing attempts for 239 yards. It's like dead even.
Yeah.
Give Swanton one more carry, and they're probably literally tied. But I was kind of going through the play-by-play, and it looked like most of Swanton's big yardage came in the second half, which, like you said, Logan, I think they probably pulled their starters and preparing for the playoffs, like a lot of teams do. If they're winning big late here, they're resting their starters for the playoffs.
And health's a big concern this time of year too.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be it's a long and grueling season. You make it to the state playoff. I believe it's like 15 weeks, something like that.
You guys were what?
I don't remember.
You guys were 13-1 in
it was like
state semifinals.
I think it's like 14, 15 weeks total if you make it to the state championship.
Yep.
So that's a long season. So it's a big key is keeping your guys healthy and and keeping those good players on the field. Let's move on to the last game here. Tenor at Paulding. Keith and I were at their broadcasting game for Tenor Rams Live. Tenor won that game 27-8. Keith, you want us to kick it off since we watched it firsthand?
Oh, boys, that first half was just the first quarter definitely was just a turnover fest.
It was.
One after another. I think there was 4 total turnovers in the first quarter, if I recall.
I think
three for sure, if not 4.
And the crazy thing was that Tenora had 3 of them, and Paulding only had 1. So I thought that was pretty crazy stat.
Yes,
so.
Defensively wise, both teams were playing great. I thought offensively, Tenora got a field goal from Jacob Bishop, about 35-yarder or something like that. Take a 3-0 lead. Right before the half, Paulding intercepted the Dominic Graziani pass, and I mean, honestly, both of us thought it was going to be a pick 6. And Cole Anders, like we talked about throughout the game, Cole never gave up. He's just took off full speed and tackled the kid on about the 4 or 5 yard line.
Yeah.
So he had a touchdown saving tackle. Really, I mean, you could see the pass just unfold the way Graziani threw it, and the linebacker did perfect read. Jumped right in front of Brandon Edwards, and he was gone. And Cole Anders just tracked down the kid, tackled him, shoestring tackle, brought him down, capped it off to Tenor's defense, capped it off by stopping them. Paulding came out to try a 20-yard field goal probably to tie it up with, I'm going to say, 25 seconds to go in the half. And I believe Taryn Ward blocked the field goal off to the left, and Graziani was over there, and it landed right in his arms, and he just jetted the other way. That's the fastest I ever seen anybody run other than Brandon Edwards.
It was pretty fast.
He was gone for probably an 85-yard touchdown. Wow. And just like that, went from going basically Paulding up 7-3. Cole Anders saved the touchdown, which we talked about on there.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen. Don't ever give up on the play on defense, because that was a perfect example of just like a snap of a finger, like the momentum changed instantly. Paulding was going to be up, then they were going to tie it, and then Taryn Ward, which I said, I believe, I tried to watch the video back. I couldn't actually see who blocked it, but I think Taryn got his paw on it. And Graziani was gone with like a second to go in a half. It was 10-0. Wow. Second half, Tenor basically controlled the ground game. Paulding got a late touchdown.
Really wasn't much to the second half.
Yeah, it was. The second half was pretty much old school Tenor football, just pounded up the middle, and but the Rams came out with an impressive 27-8 victory over at Paulding.
And I tell you what, Keith left out one thing for right before the half, and this was all with like a minute 30 to go. So Sonora had the ball, and right before Graziani threw that interception, he hit one of the wide receivers right dead in the hands, wide open. It was busted coverage by Paulding, wide open downfield, walk-in touchdown, hit him in the hands, and he dropped it.
Oh, geez.
So it was quite the swing of emotions. So you could have had a touchdown, and then they almost gave up a pick 6.
Yeah.
But then it got caught, and then that whole ordeal played out with the blocked field goal, and they returned it for 80 yards. But
and as Tony says, when he says that's a Baker Mayfield type run, that's what Dominic did. He ran all over the place, and then he threw it out there. And one of the Tenora kids was wide open, and it's kind of like I'm too wide open, and it hit him in a bad spot, hit him right in the hands. And but like I said, I was like, oh, God bless that poor kid.
Yeah,
but,
I just couldn't believe too, like that last like a minute 30 seconds
so
of the
much
game.
action.
It was like something that would have been in a movie. You couldn't have played it out any different, just because there was such a swing of emotions for both sides. I think one thing we really saw from Paulding is, man, oh man, those kids play hard, and those kids hit hard too. I mean, we were watching the way that they played. They're just aggressive in nature, and just some of the tackles, and they had linebackers were just filling so hard, and that was something too that Tenora ended up catching on, because they would fill their linebackers right in the A gap. They'd run them up there right before the snap was, and they had a couple tackles for loss, and it was working. But Tenora came out in that second half and made adjustments. But man, some of those kids hit so hard, and I couldn't believe it. Bryce, I know you kind of talked to me too before about Paulding's team, because you personally got to play him last year. So what did you have to say about the Paulding Panthers?
Yeah, we were talking last year, even like for them being 0 and whatever when we played them, we talked about it. They were one of the hardest hitting teams that we played at that point, but we just didn't understand, because usually when a team's that physical, it can at least buy you some wins with just that alone. So I think if they can get some things figured out, they could be a good program.
Yeah, and I think too we saw a couple kids really stand out. I thought Jack Woods he played very well, and we saw Braden Sanders, wide receiver for Paulding, make a couple of really good catches too. So I mean, Paulding's got some good athletes over there, and I think it's just if they can kind of mesh things together and have some stability in their program, I think that they can do some good things over there.
Yeah, I agree, Logan. They have fantastic facilities over there too. I mean, just recently improved and whatnot, but yeah, the facilities were A+, and again, shout out to athletic director Tyler Aaron over there. Nothing but first class from
excellent job
from Paulding over there as well, and his crew. Yeah, A++.
And it was great. And I tell you what, they had some of probably the better food that we've had at some of the places, because those chicken wings, I don't know who it was. They had some chicken wings that someone who was part of the football program in some manner, him and another guy, I guess, started up like a barbecue type joint. And man, those things were good. And I tell you what, if you ever go to Paulding, see if you can hook up with some of those chicken wings, because you won't regret it. So again, yeah, huge shout out to the whole athletic staff over there, Tyler Aaron and everyone else. Definitely a first class program, and really appreciated the hospitality there.
Definitely.
All right. Well, that concludes our game recaps for Week 8. We're going to go ahead and take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be back. 3Chord is a family-owned and operated business who offers the highest quality embroidery, screen printing, sign and promotional items to customers of Northwest Ohio at competitive prices. Locations in Archbold, Napoleon, and Bowling Green. Check them out at 3chord.com. That's THREECORD.com. For any of your auto body or collision needs, be sure to check out Bat & Stevens Body Shop, voted the #1 body shop in Northwest Ohio by Crescent News readers. Give them a call today at 419-497-3111 to schedule your free estimate. Check out Tenora Rams Live. Live events broadcast on YouTube and post-game results, articles, schedules, and more can all be found on tenorarams.com. Feel free to look up their Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram pages as well. Jimenez Basketball Academy strives to create an atmosphere to cultivate basketball fundamentals in Northwest Ohio youth athletes, offering one-on-one sessions, group sessions, speed and agility training, and much more. Located in Pettisville, Ohio, call Coach Jesse today at 419-551-8105. Welcome back to the NWO Sports Podcast. Logan Bailey here with Keith Brown, Tony Fairchild, and Bryce Bailey. Looking at Player of the Week from Week 8. Again, another week with a lot of good performances, but it's hard some weeks to pick some players, but this week I think we were able to at least narrow it down to a few that were really true contenders. But nonetheless, we had a lot of good players, and we're going to highlight some of their performances. So kicking it off is Carson Ultimus, quarterback, Antwerp. He was 19 of 28, 69% completion percentage, 234 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, along with 17 carries, 116 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Good for 4 total touchdowns in the game against Ayersville. Next kid, quarterback Kyler Sapp from Eden, 36 of 49, 73% completion percentage, 539 passing yards. He had 5 passing touchdowns, 11 carries, 94 rushing yards, 8.5 yards a carry, 2 rushing touchdowns for 7 total touchdowns in the game. A couple Eden wide receivers that had very good performances. Caden Nestor, Eden, 13 receptions, 156 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and 1 extra point. Wide receiver Carter Keese, Eden, had 12 receptions, 139 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. But the thing that I also like too is he had 19 tackles on defense. So he had quite a performance on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. Running back Carson Dominic from Archbold, 16 carries, 167 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Running back Keman Molina from Swanton, 9 carries, 142 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. Wide receiver Shep Halker from Columbus Grove had 4 receptions, 132 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown. Running back Joe Burt from North Central, 17 carries, 153 rushing yards, 9 yards a carry averaging, and 3 rushing touchdowns. Running back Sam Harold from Bryan, 19 carries, 185 rushing yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. And wide receiver Abe Delano from Ayersville, 2 receptions, 59 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. So he scored on both of his receptions, and he continues to be a touchdown machine. So who wants to kick it off? That some guys that caught your eye for Player of the Week from Week 8 for NWO Sports.
I'll go with that. Sam Harold, 19 carries, 185 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns against Evergreen. That's a great performance. And along with, obviously Kyler Sapp had a great game, but that's hard to beat. But yeah, that's a couple of guys that stood out to me.
Yeah, along with Tony, Kyler Sapp, boy, oh boy, can't say enough about him.
Those are like video game stats.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to see some of the familiar names week after week after week. It's some of the more successful programs, but when your name comes up on our list every week, you're doing the right thing.
And Caden Nestor, 13 receptions, 156 yards, helping out Sab. So can't do it without him.
I kind of looked at Joe Burt stood out to me, again, from North Central. I mean, when North Central's offense is all running and a rushing attack, and he's been a focal point in that offense. And you look at him, and I was able to see some of his highlights, and that dude trucks guys, and he's the real deal. He's pretty legit, and so he stood out to me. Again, someone else who kind of stood out was Shep Holker from Columbus Grove. It shocked me with how many receiving yards he has, because Columbus Grove is known to run the ball a little bit more, but ended up being a huge factor in their win for them. But nonetheless, there can only be one. So we have a list here. We kind of narrowed them down from the stats we were able to get. But after talking off air, we really narrowed it down to two guys. And we had those two, either Carson Altimus from Antwerp or Kyler Sapp from Eden. And we talked, and we were going to go with Kyler Sapp, quarterback from Eden. Again, when you're being that efficient as far as completion percentage, you throw for over 500 yards, over 600 total yards for the game, and 7 total touchdowns. I know they didn't win, but again, I mean, that was a shootout, and they came close at the end, but that's one heck of a performance by him. And again, a shout out to his wide receivers, Caden Nestor and Carter Keese. I know he had a couple others that also contributed, but man, what a performance by him. So congratulations to Kyler Sapp from Eden on the NWO Sports Player of the Week. And the Player of the Week will receive a plaque sponsored by Bat & Stevens Body Shop at the end of the season. So congratulations to him. Again, for all you guys that were on this list and not on this list, continue to go out and play your best and see if you can make it on here in the future. So we'd love to give you guys some credit for your performances and continue to promote you guys in the area. So.
And coaches, please send in stats.
Yes, coaches, please send in stats. And for the most part, we get a lot of them. But again, we're not trying to give them away or anything. We just want to promote the kids. So this gives us at least an opportunity to showcase their talent. So let's go ahead. We'll move on to the power rankings for Week 9. So I released these the other day. So this is the chance again, like I always say, for the guys here to kind of critique things and give their thoughts on where teams are ranked and possibly whether they think it's right, wrong, or indifferent. So I'll go ahead and I'll kick things off, and we'll break it down by groups. So let's start off with number 27, Fairview. Number 26, Hilltop. Number 25, Paulding. Number 24, Hicksville. Number 23, Swanton. Number 22, Montpelier. Number 21, Evergreen. And number 20, Ottawa Glandorf. So thoughts on this group here?
My perspective, it's pretty accurate. Hicksville beat Paulding a couple weeks ago. Montpelier and Evergreen, OG, one of those teams we keep pulling for, but they just seem to have lost so much talent last year that. But yeah, I think it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I agree. Looks good to me.
Bryce,
It's just odd. You never see Ottawa Glandorf this far down a list, and for this being the first time in however many years.
Literally in any sport.
Yeah,
honestly.
exactly.
all right, let's look at the next group here. Number 19, Wayne Trace. Number 18, Tenora. Number 17, Crestview. Number 16, Lipsick. Number 15, North Central. So here we had a little bit of changes. So what are your thoughts on this group here?
I don't know. It's Tenora dropped quite a bit, but even with the win, but I guess they'll have to come back and prove themselves again this week.
Yeah, Lipsick's one of those teams where it's just, I guess we were kind of high on them, and they just haven't fulfilled that the promise.
And we know they have talent. I mean,
right.
They have some really good athletes. It's just like, I don't know, I'd hate to say it, but almost kind of falling off the tracks a little bit here in the second half of the season. But I think they're one that I think they still have potential. Same with Ottawa Glandorf. I think those are two teams, especially if you're late in the season, that I do not want to play. That even
Right.
though they have losing records,
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to play them late in the season.
Not at all. And Crestview, nice to see them rebound a little bit. Started hot, fell to the basement, and slowly starting to get things churning in the right direction again.
And I think another team, too, is North Central. I feel like I got to move them up because, granted, their strength of schedule is probably not the greatest. But, again, I mean, you continue to win week in, week out. And now that we were able to see them play like a team like Hilltop, that we can kind of draw some comparisons because we've seen other teams. We've seen kind of those scoring margins, and they fit right there with some of the other teams that have played. So that's kind of my thought and reasoning putting North Central where it is. Let's look at the next group here. Number 14, Napoleon. Number 13, Eden. Number 12, Patrick Henry. Number 11, Edgerton. And we'll leave it there, and then I'll announce the top 10. So thoughts on this group here?
Edgerton's hanging in there. They're moved way back up a little bit. 7-1. I think Edgerton, if they beat Tenor this week, I think they could make a big jump on the rankings next week.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll get to see him firsthand this Friday night.
I'm excited to see
me too,
Edgerton,
really.
Because I feel like we talked about Edgerton a lot at the beginning of the year, and there's a lot of hype surrounding the Bulldogs. But I feel like, again, maybe played some teams that are a little weaker. But, again, they dropped that game to Ayersville early on in conference play. But, again, you have athletes like Corey Everett's. Again, you have, like, Pasillo at wide receiver, Quentin Blue at running back. You got a ton of good athletes on the team. It's just a matter of seeing how they play against like a Tenora who is kind of struggling halfway through the year. And then essentially I'm excited for that week 10 matchup with Antwerp. That's the one I'm excited for.
We could still have a 3-way tie for the GMC, I believe.
Yeah.
Still wind up with one loss. So
yeah, that's what I was just looking at. We talked about one of the very first things we talked about was the Antwerp Edgerton at the end of the year. That's going to decide the GMC, and if Edgerton would knock off Tenor, I mean, Edgerton's fighting for a share of the title in week 10. I mean, that's pretty much plain and simple. That's what we talked about that in the week before the preseason.
I remember that vividly, and Keith's been saying that all year, and I know he was really high on Edgerton in the preseason show. And I mean, they still haven't disappointed. 7-1. I mean, you drop a tough loss to a very good Ayersville team, so they're still hanging in there.
Yeah, I mean, even if Edgerton does lose to Tenor this week, that last game is huge for Antwerp, because if they would lose, then now they got to share the title.
Yep.
Assuming that Ayersville wins out. So I mean that Edgerton's got a couple of tough games coming up with Tenor, and then Antwerp in week 10.
And not trying to look ahead, obviously, but that final game is at Edgerton. So we'll talk about that next week, obviously, but.
And Coach Flegel's done such a nice job over there too, and I really like what he's doing. And something I've really noticed too is I like for his program, he'll bring back former alumni and coaches, and they'll come and talk at practice and just have different, motivational speeches, or just give them different pointers here and there, which I really like that a lot.
I think that's like a whole Edgerton theme, is like they do a lot during the basketball season as well.
Yeah.
Where they'll bring in, like inspirational speakers, some old players and whatnot. So it's pretty awesome, actually.
I like that too. And I think that builds a good culture there. And I mean, it kind of continue to pass on traditions. And, this is what Edgerton football is about, or whatever sporting event.
Yep.
And it also kind of keeps the alumni tied to the program too, which is always good to have that support on the sidelines and up in the stands. So
yeah, Coach Flegel, my gosh, he's probably 26, 27. He's honestly not that old.
Yeah, I think he's honestly my age.
Yep.
I think we played against him. So he's pretty similar to my age, and he's doing a nice job over there in Edgerton. Let's look at the top 10 here. Coming in at number 10 is Bryan, number 9, Delta, number 8, Wauseon, number 7, Columbus Grove, number 6, Defiance. So what are your thoughts on this group here?
Bryan is hanging in the top 10 there, and they got a couple of good games coming up. The last week I think they play Wauseon, if I remember the schedule right.
Swanton and Wauseon.
Yeah, so they should be. They're could they be in the top? Should they be in the top 10? I don't know. Should they be below Edgerton? I don't know. But Delta, they've been playing well. Wauseon's been playing really well since, like Keith mentioned earlier, they made the quarterback switch. They've been on fire since then. So. I think you got them.
I think it's pretty accurate. It's just we talked about week after week, Brian. You really don't know what team's going to show up for some reason.
Don't.
I mean, it's Jekyll and Hyde there with Golden Bears, Delta and Wauseon. That'll settle itself this Friday night. Defiance, boy, has a tough loss last week, so they should bounce back this week. But all in all, pretty accurate.
Yeah, I mean, you come back to the Bryan thing. When you look at Bryan, I just kind of looked at their schedule. Their losses were to Van Wert, Archbold, Liberty Center, and then the Delta loss was the one that kind of surprised everybody. But, they've lost, but they competed in those games, and it was 14-28 against Archbold. I mean, Van Wert kind of handled them, and Liberty Center handled them, but we kind of expected that. But so I don't know. Like you said, never know with Bryan what'll happen.
All right, let's look at the top 5 here. Number 5, Ayersville. Number 4, Archbold. Number 3, Antwerp. Number 2, Van Wert. And number 1, Liberty Center. So little shake up in the top 5 here, but what are your thoughts on this group here?
Yeah, I would say pretty much nailed it. Ayersville, their last 2 games are just playoff, getting kind of playoff prep.
Yeah.
Archbold, Antwerp. Yeah, I don't honestly see anybody beating Liberty Center. So
Liberty Center's really surprised me this year. I knew they'd be good, but I didn't realize they'd be this good because they did lose a lot of talent last year.
Yep. Yeah, they're just dominant on the defensive side. Which I mean, without looking, I think still isn't the most points scored was against when they played Napoleon. Is that the most points they've allowed this year?
That's
like week 2, I believe.
I think you're right.
They scored 18.
Yes.
So
21.
They're 21. Yes. I mean, that's
which in Liberty Center's defense has been lights out all year. So I think definitely if you're a coach playing against them, that you're looking at that game film and you're trying to see what did Napoleon do. So
yeah, I mean, at Liberty Center, gave up 0, gave up 21 to Napoleon, then 0-6, 0-0, 7-6. I mean, they're not give up more points almost in that one game than they have the rest of the season. Well, they did actually 21 in that game, and they've given up quick math. 19 the rest of the season. So
Evergreen and Delta coming up, so odds are pretty good. They possibly pitch shutouts there too.
Possibly.
At least that would be your goal, I think, if you're a player going into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you got it nailed. Van Wert, we don't get to see Van Wert very much, but obviously they're still rolling. So, yeah, I think the top 5 is pretty strong. Like he said, Ayersville, they basically they're probably going to be resting their starters, I would think, by halftime in both of the last 2 games. So,
right.
We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, that concludes our power rankings for Week 9. We're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be back with the hot takes. And we got a new segment coming, so stay tuned. Fairchild Family Chiropractic aims to help families to get better together in the least invasive way possible. Dr. Fairchild focuses on the neck using the Blair technique and Palmer package, adjusting to correct spinal misalignments. Located in Defiance, Ohio, call Dr. Fairchild today at 419-576-5070 to schedule an appointment. Northwest Ohio Basketball hosts premier basketball tournaments for boys in grades 3 to 8 in the area. Upcoming tournaments are right around the corner. Give them a call today at 419-283-5296 or check out their website at nwoball.com. Crystal Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty is a top real estate agent in Northwest Ohio. Crystal's compassion and enthusiasm allow her to find that special property or house just for you. Located in Bryan, Ohio, give her a call today at 419-799-1243. Welcome back to the NWO Sports Podcast. We're on to our favorite section of the podcast, and we're on to the hot takes. And we have a new segment today, and we'll have one individual call in. And this week it's running back and middle linebacker from North Central, Cameron Laney. So thanks for calling in, Cameron.
Yep.
So we're just going to ask you a couple questions. You guys are doing big things there in North Central. What has it been like to play in the first varsity season over there at North Central?
It's been incredible. There's been a lot to it. We thought it wasn't going to be much, and then we thought it was going to be a mediocre season, 5-5, and then we came out and we've been playing real good.
And I would say your guys' season has been anything but mediocre. I mean, you guys are 6-2, and you you guys have beat some pretty good teams. So I mean, that's been pretty impressive. But next question I have for you is how has the community reacted? I mean, because there hasn't been any football in Pioneer, Ohio. So what's that been like?
They've been great. They've supported well. We've been having a lot of people out for our games. You probably see the Facebook post before every game. There's about 1 million of them.
Yeah,
they love it. They love it.
I just think that's so awesome though, because we've been fortunate from more of our neck of the woods to always have football surrounding us. Always have football. I went to Tenora High School, so we've always had football there. But I mean, that's just awesome that you get that opportunity, because I mean, that was something that you guys never had there at North Central before. But man, congrats on the last win against Hilltop. You had a heck of a performance. I saw you had a touchdown pass and 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. Yep. So tell me a little bit about the last game against Hilltop.
We came into it knowing that we were probably going to be the better team, but we didn't want to think that we were the better team.
Right.
So
right.
we came out and they threw some weird formations at us, and it didn't work very, very long. It probably worked for about a play. Then it was a big game. We got chippy. We still played. A lot of personal flags, knowing that first rivalry team we played that were close. So there was a lot of.
Is the Hilltop matchup, is that a rivalry against you guys? Because, I mean, you guys are probably pretty close by.
Yeah, it's going to be now. We're like 10, 15 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
So it got chippy for a little bit there.
Well, I mean, at least you guys get to experience that rivalry game, because, I mean, you get involved in those games. It's like nothing else. So a lot of times you can always throw records out the window. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Let's go ahead. Tell me a little bit about your teammate Joe Burt. He's been a name that's been popping up on our podcast and in the media. It seems like that man rushes for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns a game and is a literal tank in the backfield. Why don't you tell me a little bit about him?
Yeah, Joey is an absolute workhorse for us right now. He is great running back. He's breaking 3-4 tackles every play. When his name gets called defensively at middle linebacker, he's got to be having like 10 tackles a game. Comes downhill good. He's just a great all-around player.
Yeah, and you guys too. I mean, yourself included. I mean, 1-2 punch between you two at running back. I mean, that's been awesome to see. I mean, you guys come out, and I think North Central probably runs the ball more than anyone else in the area. So that's impressive to see. You and Joe both have some success on the offensive side, and you guys both contribute on the defensive side too. So what's your favorite side of the ball to play on? You like playing offense or defense better?
It's got to be defense.
Oh, yeah? You like defense better?
Yeah. You get to hit every play. It's just awesome.
There you go. You like the physicality.
Yes, I love it.
Awesome. Last question I have for you here is, I know you guys haven't played, you don't have a true conference, but how has it been to travel? Because you guys have played some teams that have been pretty far away, and what's that like to play in those games and those teams from I mean, hours away at times?
It's not the same as playing like Hilltop. The energy isn't like the same. You're tired from the bus ride. The bus ride back sucks. It's just not as close to the same.
Yeah. I can see that. I was just curious, but I feel like too, you almost got to travel for those farther games because you guys don't play in a conference local to the area, and you guys have even played some Michigan teams too. And how have those games been?
Michigan football is not like Ohio football for sure, but
yeah,
go
ahead.
It's football though. As long as we got a game, we got a team to play.
Right, exactly. And we kind of talked about that too on here, and just curious to hear it. I'm glad we got to hear it firsthand from a player, but we were kind of talking about that too, how we think Ohio football ranks probably just a little bit above Michigan football as far as quality of teams and players. So, all right.
Yeah, I would say.
Talking to the guys here, do you guys have any questions for Cameron Laney from North Central?
Yeah, Cameron, I actually got a question for you. But first, I want to comment on showing off the arm there. You're a running back, but you throw a 38-yard touchdown pass. I mean, what's going on with that?
Oh, you keep running outside and they'll bite on you real quick. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like something I would do as a coach, but that's pretty cool. But hey, the question I wanted to ask you is how did you guys progress into having a varsity program? Did you guys start this at like a junior high level and then work your way up there and then decide to have varsity, or was this just like straight out of the gate?
This was we started in 8th grade when Coach Thompson, the head coach now, moved to North Central.
Okay.
And he's been building it up. We did junior high, 8th grade. And then when my freshman year and junior year, freshman, sophomore year, we did JV. And then so we worked up to it. Coach didn't want to jump right in and then have to drop down to 8-man.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. And we've made a comment about you guys also jumping in and playing 11-man versus playing 8-man. I think that's awesome that you get, and it's great that you guys are having success.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Keith and Bryce, you got any questions before we let Cameron go?
Actually, Cameron kind of answered my question about Coach Scott Thompson and I guess the progression into this. So a follow-up question I had was for you, Cameron. Not trying to put the cart in front of the horse or anything, but you guys are currently 10th in the playoffs. What does that feel like? I mean, obviously there's probably really not too much locker room talk about that, but you guys are ahead of teams like Eden and Crestview and Leipzig. So in your first varsity football season, I mean, if the chips fall right, you could actually possibly host a playoff game. And I mean, do you guys talk about that at all heading into the current week at all, or you just kind of brush it off and just play each week at a time?
Well, we've been talking about. There's been some talk about it, and then Coach Thompson doesn't like to talk about it. He's like, we got to focus next week.
Yep.
And if week 11 comes, week 11 comes. He said. So.
And said just like a coach.
Yep, just what a coach would say.
All right. Well, Cameron, we won't keep you too much longer. Bryce, you got anything or?
Yeah, I was just wondering, how long has it taken you guys to establish your offense and get everyone working on the same page? Or have you always been this close with your teammates? And how has it worked, just getting to know each other and what everyone's strengths are?
They've been all playing together because they played over in the Fremont League when they were smaller.
Okay.
So they've been playing together for a lot of years. So they have the chemistry. And then when Coach T came in 8th grade, we ran the same thing for 3-4 years now, so we got it down pretty good.
Oh, good deal. All right. Well, this has been Cameron Laney, from running back and middle linebacker from North Central. I just want to say thanks again for coming on. This has been awesome, and you're our first guest we've had on, and pretty cool experience. Glad we got to showcase yourself and the North Central football program. Do you have any last words before we let you go, Cameron?
No, thanks.
All right. Well, good. I want to wish you good luck the rest of the season, and hopefully we see you guys make a deep playoff run. So congrats, and hopefully we see you do some big things on the field.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. Best of luck,
right.
Cameron.
Take care, Cameron.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, that was Cameron Laney, running back from North Central. So I thought that was a pretty cool segment.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get at least one call in a week, and we can talk some football related to Northwest Ohio. So we'll continue with our hot takes. And next hot take, I recently posted a poll on Twitter, but I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts are. Who is your offensive player of the year with 2 weeks left to go in the regular season? And I kind of had a list. These are guys I threw out there. Aiden Pratt from Van Wert, Carson Altimus, Antwerp, Matthew Orr, Liberty Center, Corey Everett, Edgerton, Carson Dominic, Archbold, Jeremiah Walford, Delta, Maddox Crutchfield, Van Wert, and Hayden Heigl from Leipzig. Those are some guys that stuck out to me. Personally, I'll get to who I kind of think is leading the way, but I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts.
It's a pretty good list.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who would be my offensive player? Just using that list, all right? I'm not going to dig into it any further. Just using the list you put up there. Man, oh man, that's the one person I don't see on there is Kyler Sapp, who's been tearing it up a little bit also at times. Man, Keith, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I think it will help too once at the end of the year, I get all the official stats, but I was kind of peeking at some of them, and I can tell you who stuck out to me so far is Aiden Pratt. quarterback from Van Wert, and I looked at his statistics, and he's by far and wide blowing everyone away as far as passing yards. His completion percentage is up there. Touchdowns, he's got so many, and I think he's only thrown like one to three interceptions on the year, and he's got like 20-plus passing touchdowns. So,
I mean, that Aiden Pratt would probably be, for all of Northwest Ohio, would probably be my pick. I'm gonna guess. Ultimus, we get to watch him firsthand, so it's a little different.
Right.
Matthew Orr, we get to watch him firsthand as well. We'll see Corey this week, but it's just But yeah, Pratt's been doing well, statistically, but Ultimus has a great arm too. So
he does. There was a couple passes we watched in that Tenora game that they were shockers because it's like he just went back, dropped back in the pocket, and that ball just kept on going and going and going. So,
but Aiden Pratt, I think nothing against Ultimus, but I think Pratt probably plays a little bit higher level of defense against him versus playing in the GMC. And,
sure.
Sometimes Ultimus throws some big numbers up, but he's playing teams like Hicksville and Fairview that aren't very good this year. So
right.
But yeah, I just that's a good list.
Keith or Bryce?
I really, honestly, I don't have much to add. I think you guys pretty much said everything that I was thinking. I mean, really, Ultimus and Matthew Orr, which we've seen once, but I can't argue with a single word you two guys said.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you guys say. I think I played against 4 on this list, and I think the best personally that I've played and come into contact with would be Matthew Orr. He's very strong, very, very hard to take down. We had a very good defensive line last year, and he was a problem.
I mean, that's kind of nice that we have someone who has firsthand experience of playing against a couple of these guys. So that's awesome. So you get Bryce's input, who actually played on the field against some of these guys. So I'll have to get the stats at the end of the year, but I mean, those are some talented athletes to be recognized on that list. And I know there's probably a couple others we could throw on there, but I'll be curious to see when we sit down at the end of the year and see truly who ends up winning Offensive Player of the Week or the year. Sorry, my bad. But we'll also look possibly do the hot take next week for defensive.
Yes.
So
Awesome.
Again, so yeah, go ahead and vote in that poll on Twitter, and we'll kind of gauge the audience's idea of who's Player of the Year. Let's go on to the next hot take. Someone sent in Wauseon caught a break against Delta, and we talked about that game recap. And I would say you're probably correct, because when you score with 1:32 left in the game, I mean, you're down to the final minutes and seconds of the game, and you happen to throw a long touchdown pass. I would say so. And from what I heard too from that game is Delta had their chances to put some more points on the board and play a little better. But what are you guys' thoughts on this hot take here?
Well, I do think Wauseon is starting to heat up right now, so I don't want to knock anything from what they've been doing in the recent weeks. So, and
like Keith's mentioned before too, ever since they made the quarterback switch and Parsons has been in, they haven't lost a game. So I mean, Wauseon's been on a roll as of late, and I think that's what you really need. I know the start of the season, Wauseon was kind of on that bumpy road, but I think they're figuring things out over there.
Yeah, I think that we talked with the previous couple of weeks, they're kind of the team we thought they were going to be at the first week or two of the season. Like, I guess up until they got defeated by Tenor in week 2, then quarterback change a few weeks ago. But yeah, they've been Coach Moore and the Indians been full steam ahead the last month.
Wauseon is, as far as the hot take, Wauseon caught a break against Delta. Absolutely, I'm going to agree with that 100%, because I would have thought that this would not have been hold Wauseon to 0 until the last minute and a half of the game. Right. Catch a break and get a touchdown pass, and I'm sure that's probably exactly what happened. It looks like from the the looks of the game that Delta held Wauseon in check, and they got a break, and somebody actually squirted out and got open, and that's all it took. But sometimes that's all it does take. But yeah, I would have to agree. Wauseon probably caught a break against Delta. But
I almost think too that Delta kind of got a taste of their own medicine. If you look at week 1 against Ayersville, Ayersville had that heartbreaker week 1. Delta came away with a win. Now it's kind of they're on the opposite side of things where they lose a heartbreaker. But nonetheless, I've been really impressed with Delta this year. I think they've surprised us all. I mean, especially going from a 16 seed last year in the playoffs, going 4-6. They're really turning things around. So I've been really impressed, and even Wauseon. Just the way they've turned things around as well. So, again, we talked about it going into conference play that everyone in the NWL is going to beat each other up, and there can only be one. And so far, Liberty Centers came away with all the victories. So,
when we talked about Delta, they play in the NWOAL, and like you said, they're beating each other up. And yet I look at their schedule, and they got to play PH this week, then Liberty Center. So, so they might end up 5-5. I mean, it just depends on how the last 2 weeks go. But man.
All right, let's move on to the next hot take. This one I think is truly a hot take, and we'll see what the guys think. But Abe Delano, wide receiver from Ayersville, is the best wide receiver in the GMC, better than Landon Brewer, and that's a bold statement. So who wants to kick this one off?
I guess if we're talking number-wise, or, I mean, obviously, as Bryce knows, Antwerp's just going to throw the ball and throw the ball and throw the ball. So Brewer's going to stack up more numbers. Like going into last week, he had 220-yard advantage over Pasillo of Edgerton. So this didn't include this week's numbers, or last Friday's numbers, but he had a 200-yard advantage.
And let's get
over his next.
Yeah.
So.
Let's get this out there, too. Both of these kids are great athletes.
Oh, boy, absolutely.
So, I mean,
yes.
That's first and
No
foremost.
doubt
They're both
about
good
it.
wide receivers. But when you're comparing the two, like you were saying, Keith, I feel like with Antwerp, you throw the ball a little bit more. But then you look at Delano, I mean, you look at his small sample size. He only had 2 receptions in that game, but both of them were touchdowns. You see a couple weeks ago, I believe against Hicksville, he only had like 3 or 4 receptions, but they were all almost touchdowns.
It's like 180 yards with each catch was a touchdown. So he catches them and makes them count.
It's almost quality versus quantity.
I mean, it is, and to say that too. But Landon Brewer, we saw him firsthand, and he's a taller wide receiver, and he can go up and make some grabs. And I mean, he kind of shows off his, I feel like, basketball athleticism at times.
It helps
too.
out quite a bit.
It does.
Like the Rams actually shut down Landon Brewer
outside
well.
of that last drive. He had that heck of a catch on the far sideline.
Right.
So it actually was a key catch in that drive on the last 3 minutes.
But other than, I mean, he didn't really have a great breakout game against the Rams. But like you said, it seems like every different time you look at the stats of Delano, I had 59 receiving yards, but they were both 2 catches for 59 yards, but they were both touchdowns. So
and he's averaging like 20-30 yards of reception too, but
So
he's only
seems
got
like it.
2-3. So
yeah, so if you base it straight on numbers, Brewer's probably got him. But if you like Bryce said, quality over quantity, it's every time he touches the ball, he's scoring. I don't know. That kind of stat kind of reminds me of like Kelsey from the Chiefs. That dude, you're thinking to myself, I watched the game last night, and I'm thinking, why don't you double team this guy?
Right.
Same kind of thing with Delano. It's like every time he touches the ball, he's going to cut. It's going to be a touchdown. So, I think I'd be have people that, hey, you're going with that guy.
Oh yeah, you would think too. I mean, the success you've seen, he scores about every time he gets the ball in his hands. You think that if you're a defensive coordinator, you know which guy they're going to throw the ball to, and he's going to score. So you try to shut him down. So.
Yeah, but, I'd probably match up one of my better athletes with that guy and said, don't let him go.
Yeah.
But yeah, that could go either way.
I think so too. I don't know if I can truly put it for sure on it. I would say they're almost even. You know what I mean? It's hard to compare because you don't see Ayersville's offense go out and throw a ton of balls like they do to Brewer. So, nonetheless, both kids will probably be first-team GMC.
If you flip a coin and one's head, one's tails, you're not going to be disappointed on which one you're going to wind up with. So, I mean, both of them are top class. Yeah, exactly. No doubt about it.
You said it right. If I'm picking a GMC team and they say, okay, Keith, I get first pick, you get second pick, and I pick Brewer. I mean, Delano. I could go Delano. It could go either way.
If Delano was in Brewer's situation, then would that be a different story, or would that be about the same?
Well, I mean, if he's still touching every time he touches the ball, he's scoring touchdowns, and I'd say, he probably have a lot more touchdowns. I would think, but You know, and I don't know offensively what Ayersville does that sets Delano up. I mean, are they setting that up? You know, because I know against us, he basically just ran a seam right down the middle, wasn't it? Where he scored a touchdown. So maybe they set that up, and then he just gets
They're sleeping on him.
Yeah, and all of a sudden here he goes down the middle and he's wide open, because against Sonora he was wide open. Even I could have thrown to him, I think.
And I think too, both Antwerp and Ayersville are fortunate to have these kids.
Yes.
So definitely two of the better athletes in the Green Meadows Conference. Let's look at the next hot take. This one, I'll read it right off, and then Keith, you can start this one since you kind of had a take. But change regular season to 8 games and every team makes playoffs. So you want to start that one, Keith?
First, I'll start it, then I'll deflect it to the man that participated in it a couple of years ago. But if you play 8-game regular season, and every team makes the playoffs, then what's the point of playing the regular season, really? Yeah. I mean, and Bryce, we'll let him answer next. He actually did it 2 years ago.
Yeah, I would say at that point, playoffs, it doesn't really mean as much. And a lot of those first couple games, they're just wasted, and it's a bad case of injuries just waiting to happen. Right. And like last year, I think I was done before the first half was over. Like we were winning by almost 50 at the end of the game.
Well, I think too, football in Ohio high school sports has always been that one sport that not everyone makes it. I mean, I talked with you, Tony, before. I mean, you look at softball, baseball, basketball, all those teams, everyone makes it. Even volleyball, I believe everyone makes it too. Right. But football was always the one sport where you had to be the best of the best in order to make the playoffs. And there was that almost that, I don't even know how I want to describe it, that feeling that it was a little something extra to make the playoffs, you know, and I feel like having more teams and even expanding it to so much kind of takes away from the quality of the whole thing and kind of the I don't even know what I want to say.
That's what I was just going to talk about. Yeah. Was you talk about having every team make the playoffs. Just use college football. They only let 4 teams make it at this point. Yeah. They're talking about expanding it, and don't get me wrong, it needs to be bigger than 4 teams. Yeah. But there has to be something to play for through the season, and you know, and being a softball coach, every team makes it. Little different in baseball, softball, because you can play multiple games in a week. Right. Football, you can't. So if you would have to drop the season to 8 games, which I think you lose. Some of those games that you like to see, like the Sonora Liberty Center, or you're outside your conference a little bit. If you drop it to 8 games, I mean, you're playing your conference opponents, and if your conference is strong, then like the NWAL, then you might do better in the rankings. If your conference is weak, kind of like the GMC is this year, then your rankings are going to be lower. So I don't think taking it to 8 games and putting everybody in there for football is the thing to do.
Well,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
And another way you could kind of look at it is if you're a team with a losing record, you could end the season on a win, or you could go into playoffs and just get dominated for the first game, or that'll be the last game going into the next season. So what kind of taste is that going to leave in your mouth going in, and what kind of high are you going to be riding?
Yeah, like a Hilltop. I mean, you take a Hilltop that has won 1 game in 2 years or whatever it's been, and you put them in the playoffs against a Liberty Center. I mean, all you're asking for is to get somebody hurt in that kind of game. Liberty Center is just going to steamroll them, and like Bryce said, you're going to be out at halftime. You're going to be up 50-0, and what did you really gain? For the state, it's money. Yeah, I mean, I know what that's about. Yeah. It's money for the state, but other than that, it's really nothing. It's just it would be like putting every team in it in a college football, and then you have Alabama playing, I don't even know,
Bowling Green. Or
something, right?
Something like
that. Yeah, exactly.
It'd be equivalent too.
Yeah, playing Akron. Yeah. And, so I don't agree with that one at all.
And honestly, too, I would like to even go from 16 to 12 teams. I think that would be better. Again, I think 16 is just too many, because then we've seen in the past, you start letting teams with losing records get in, and I just don't like the thought of making a playoff with a losing record. So, and
I like the idea of 12 and giving the first 4 teams buys for the first week. That would be a great way to do it, and then letting them play it out, or something like that. But
I agree. But like you guys touched on a couple of points you made before, like if you talk, which Logan did, to some of the Montpelier teams, even like the Defiance team from '97, and they actually take pride in that. Like Back
do.
then,
Yeah.
like that, you had to finish in the top 10, and you could literally go 10-0. And like every Sunday, these coaches and players would have, back then, I guess you call it like a watch party to see if they would make the playoffs, waiting for the phone call. I mean, you couldn't get online to find anything. You just had to wait. And then you found out you missed the playoffs by like 0.05 computer points. I mean, it's just, and you went undefeated.
Yeah, I remember that. That's
Yep.
that's the way it was when I played.
Yep.
If you didn't go undefeated or 9-1, you weren't even sniffing the playoffs.
Right.
If you made it in at 8-2 back, when I was in school, that was like an anomaly. You didn't hear of that.
You had,
you had to run
quality
the table.
schedule.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's even like when I was at the University of Findlay playing football. I was fortunate enough to be on 2 playoff teams, and in Division II, the way they do it is they have 4 super regions, and essentially they take, I think it's like 8 teams from each region or whatever, and I think the 1 and 2 seed get buys. But anyhow, like we take pride in that, like in playing at college, like to say that we were programs. I mean, because you have to be on your A game in order to make the playoffs, and there's a whole committee that selects the teams and a whole process. But I mean, that's something that, like you said, Keith. I mean, you take pride in that because you bust your butt, and it's hard to make the playoffs, and that's just something that not many other people can say. So. That was a good hot take.
very good.
I like that. I don't know if I agree with it, but it sparked some good conversation. So we got a few more hot takes here. Next one is Liberty Center wins state title, and the way we've seen lately, I think their chances just keep going up and up because I don't see them slowing down anytime soon. So what do you guys have to say about this one?
It's going to take a good team to beat them. I mean, plain and simple. I mean, from what we've seen, you're going to have to be a really good team.
Yeah, at the beginning of the season, like I said earlier, I would have said no, but now seeing what they've done and what they've accomplished and how they keep getting better, I'd say it's a realistic possibility.
Yeah, definitely outside of an injury, God forbid. I mean, it's going to take a real tough team to knock them off.
And I don't even know like you said, Keith, obviously you never want to see injuries, but I don't even know if they have an injury to one of their starters, if they'll even drop, because they have so much depth on their team. Yep. They have almost 70 players.
70 plus.
When we played them, I don't even think they dressed their JV.
Yeah, they have so much talent, and we talked to some Liberty Center guys over there, and I believe one of them said that this is the most running backs that Coach Moeller's been confident in that can get first string reps, and I think that says a lot. And just again, having that much depth, and I don't see a flaw in Liberty Center right now. I think they kind of got kinks worked out. The Otsego game was pretty close. Napoleon game was pretty close, but that was at the beginning of the year. But they've rolled through conference play, and they haven't looked back.
I think they're kind of doing it the old school way. It's not like Antwerp. They're going to come out and throw the ball 50 times and just beat you through the air. They're just kind of like an old nostalgic 90s, which I think they're honoring the 97 team this week.
Oh, are they?
Kind of similar to that, where they're just going to, pound the ball to death, just beat you up on both sides of the ball and kind of just wear you out. So,
and that's something too. I mean, even though they run the ball, they still have Zyder at quarterback, and they have some good wide receivers that can catch the ball, Chopin and Cruz, and those guys they can beat you in the passing game too, and they at least that keeps defenses honest, because they can't necessarily put 11 guys in the box because they know they can get bird deep on the pass game because they have good enough athletes. So, like Tony said, it's going to be really tough. I tell you what, I would really like to see a Liberty Center and either Elmwood or Eastwood matchup, because, like we said, in that region and division, I think that one of those three are going to come out, and even actually Coldwater's in there too. I would love to see those 4 teams match up against each other. That would be some good quality Ohio high school football.
That'd be great.
I mean, tons of athletes and ton of great coaching. So this just makes me get excited for playoff football. I tell you what,
right around the corner.
It is just a couple of weeks away. So let's move on to the next hot take. Patrick Henry makes the playoffs. So this one, I don't know if Keith, do you have the rankings pulled up?
Yes, right now they are 13th.
Okay, and I'm trying to see if they're sitting 13th right now. Let's look at the rest of their schedule.
Played Delta and Archbold.
Yeah, that's
sitting at 4-4 right now. Yeah. I just for them to come out with 2 wins, if they make the playoffs, it'd be. I'm going to say they're going to make the playoffs at 5-5 at best.
Yeah, I think if they can pick a win up against one of those 2 teams, I think they'll get enough computer points just because how Delta and Archbold have done this year.
I don't see how Patrick Henry makes it in, to be honest, guys. Their wins are against Hicksville, Wayne Trace, Swanton, and Evergreen. To me, they don't have a quality win.
Too.
They don't have a quality win. They'd have to beat Archbold, in my opinion, to get in.
They would have to, because you're not going to get many computer points from those teams either, because you rely on those teams to pick up wins, and
they're not.
And you figure Swanton and Evergreen are still in the midst of conference play. And Wayne Trace,
they don't have any quality wins. They beat Hicksville.
Yeah,
they beat
I think the more you talk about it, I think that if they're going to make the playoffs, you either got to win both games or you got to beat Archbold. I think if you beat Delta and you lose to Archbold, I don't think they get in.
Yeah, I think
their Delta right now is 15th in our region, the Division 5, Region 18. So they're Delta's just sneaking in right now.
What now is PH? They Division 6.
Yes.
You're either 6 or 7.
They are 6 Region 22. No, yeah, they are Division 6 Region 22.
Okay.
So in my opinion, in order for them to make the playoffs, they're going to have to beat at least Archbold.
Yeah, I agree.
If not both teams.
All right.
Agree.
I think we made our point there. So if you're a Patrick Henry fan, you either got to win the next 2, I would say, or at least beat Archbold at the very minimum in order to sneak in. So darn fly flying around here.
Fly there. I about swatted the microphone.
Let's move on. A couple more hot takes. Someone sent in Fairview beats Hicksville by 50, and I think this is just someone from Fairview sending in a little hot take and start some stuff against Hicksville, but I really don't foresee it.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No.
I think it's going to be a lot closer game, and honestly, the way we've seen Hicksville play, and they played Ayersville tough and some other schools, I don't know. I kind of see Hicksville possibly beating Fairview, but at least it's a game that Fairview can be in, I think, and have a potential to win. But by 50,
and of course, joking aside, it's all fun here with clearly, but has Fairview scored 50 points on the season?
I was just going to ask that.
Let me look back.
Coach McCord's got good kids coming up, it seems like, in the junior high and whatnot. But
the most points they've scored this year was 13 against Bryan.
Is 50 the spread then?
Yeah. No,
39 points. If my math was right, they just scored 39 points this season.
Yeah. So, I don't think that they obviously don't beat them by 50, but I think it's
49. I'm sorry,
it'll
49,
be a good game.
49 points.
I think it's a closer game. I think it's a good game, like Bryce was saying, but 50. That's definitely joking there.
Maybe that's the over under.
Maybe, yeah.
A combined score.
Yeah,
but nonetheless, it should be a good team between both programs, and for Fairview, you hope you get a win, get your first win of the season, get Coach McCord's first win as a head coach at Fairview. On the other hand, if you're Coach Lucas Smith from Hicksville, this is a game you got to win. Your numbers have been down a little bit, but to kind of build off something as the season wraps up and you look into the next season, this would be a big win for their program there. So
both these schools were dominant just 2 or 3 years ago in the GMC.
Absolutely.
Competing against each other for the title.
And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You get these smaller schools and your rounds of athletes and kids just kind of make their way through. And like Bryce said, they've had their time in the past, but they're kind of in a slump right now.
Both schools have had really dominant quarterbacks, like Jake Greer at Hicksville a few years back he was unstoppable.
Fairview had Cade Poulter and Doug Riggs
back to back.
Yeah. And they're all of those were great quarterbacks. So, and that was just not too long ago. So, two more hot takes. Next one is Antwerp wins the GMC. And I think the way things are going, I think I would probably give them like a 90% chance to win.
I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but.
Well, that's not really a hot take. I feel like that's just a generalized statement because they're doing well, and the only thing that's really standing between them, I'm trying to think who they have this week. Antwerp has Paulding this week. So Paulding and Edgerton are the only 2 teams standing between them and a GMC title, and I hate to say it, but I don't think Paulding's going to get it done, and even Edgerton. They're the last hope, and if Edgerton wins, they could really stir up a lot as far as share of the title.
Antwerp takes care of business this week against Paulding. They've locked it. right? I mean, they've got to share the minimum.
Right.
They got to share over the conference. So, the Antwerp wins GMC. I think it's probably a 98%, 99% that they want to share of the title at least.
Yeah.
This is a Week 10 showdown at Antwerp. This is seriously, if Edgerton takes care of business against Sonora this Friday, going into this game at Edgerton, with Bryce said, that atmosphere, like Bryce is on the sidelines. You can reach out and touch him.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's not even a fence around the field.
I just want to.
And then it's in the valley with everything echoing. It was one of my favorite places to play.
Yes,
cars along the hill.
Right. Just the atmosphere over there. All the fans are going to be literally on the field. Yeah. I mean, I would love to go to that game, but we'll be busy. So
somebody gets their mouthpiece knocked out, it ends up in the stands.
Right. I said that's one bad thing about it. It's like you almost wish there was multiple of yourself so you could go out and see all these games. I mean, we talk about all of them, but we can only be in one place at one time. But again, there's so many good games each week. So I think that Week 10 matchup that will be a good one. But I don't know. I don't really foresee Edgerton upsetting Antwerp in Week 10, but I think they may have a chance at giving them a little run for their money.
Yeah, it would have to be one of those deals that we talked about earlier where Coach Flagel has a game plan where Edgerton just eats up the clock. And you try and just control the ball like
you got to
almost 70-30, which is almost impossible.
Yeah.
But that would be your best case scenario, is just one first down at a time and old Sonora Rams football.
Yeah.
Just grind it out.
That's the thing too. I mean, the way they run their offense through Corey Everett, do they really have that in their offense? Because they're known to have big plays, quick scores. But I agree with you, Keith. Yep. I mean, you got to keep the ball out of Antwerp's offense, because I mean, you give the ball to them, they're gonna put points on the board, and we've seen that against quality defenses. We saw that against Sonora, against Ayersville, multiple other teams too. So I think that if going into that game, that has to be your strategy if you're Edgerton, if you want a chance at beating Antwerp and a share at the title too. So
yeah, I think just quickly looking, I don't know, the Rams probably allowed the fewest points to Antwerp this year at 20. It's 20-14, and that is the lowest they've allowed. And yeah, defensively, the Rams played Antwerp very, very good. So
yeah, I'm. That's definitely one a matchup on the year in the Green Meadows Conference. Get out and go watch that Week 10 matchup between Antwerp and Edgerton. And I know we're looking ahead, but that's going to be a good one. Yep. Last hot take here. This one's kind of personal, and someone sent this in.
I have my answer down right now.
Someone sent this in.
Bryce,
I don't even know what it's regarding, but I know
he sent it in last week, but I waited since Bryce is coming on the show this week. But it's high school Bryce versus high school Logan. Now, I don't know what that means exactly. I don't know if he's talking about football, one-on-ones, or a race.
Bryce all across the board.
I don't know about that. I said what Bryce would beat me in, he definitely beat me in a race because I'm slow as can all get out. But I said a one-on-one matchup on O-line and D-line, I'd probably take Bryce.
I'd mess him up.
Or I'd not take Bryce, take myself.
Thank you.
We
end the show right now.
No, I would take myself. And no chance that Bryce would win in a one-on-one matchup.
He doesn't know what he's talking about.
I'll tell you what, I'd love to see you guys line up across from each other. Bryce playing defensive end, you play.
He forgets his senior year. He's only like 220.
Well, we'll have to change that to, instead of high school Bryce versus high school Logan, college Bryce versus retired football player Logan.
So we'll do this right now, right in front of the camera.
So, well, we talked about our race.
That's awesome. Well, we'll get Brock in here too.
I guess. Gosh. So I wanted to bring that on and have a little discussion about that.
That's funny. My opinion is, though, I've seen both these gentlemen play multiple sports, multiple years, and I'm not going to say who's better, but Logan is probably one of the more decorated athletes in the history of Sonora High School. Seriously, 2 Final Fours, I believe. All-state lineman, offensive lineman, defensive lineman too. Still holds the record for rebounds, I think, for basketball, 22 off the top of my head.
29.
29, see?
Yeah.
29.
I remember certain things.
I think it was against Delta. I think you're a beast that game. Baseball-wise, won a championship in 2014.
Yep.
So
as a sophomore,
he's probably he'll turn red and everything. But honestly, he's one of the top players that I've seen in Tenora history. So
I beat him 1-on-1 in basketball last time we played.
Oh my gosh. I hear you.
Oh my gosh, Bryce!
There's always competitiveness between me and Bryce. We compete at everything. So,
well, I tell you what, I coached both these guys when they were in junior high, and I tell you what, Bryce, you haven't changed a bit, dude.
Bryce had a home run against Wasion and the Acme as a junior, I think, to send him to the state. I believe so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, it was at Miller City, I believe. So.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. That was pretty cool. I was actually watching the broadcast because I was at college. So Bryce has a little pop in his bat, but that was a fun one. We just wanted to stir up an argument with my brother.
Awesome.
So,
oh my gosh, Bryce was like right away. Bryce across the board. Love it.
Anyhow, but
Awesome.
That's our last hot take. Again, these were all anonymous. Continue to send them in. We appreciate it. You can go ahead and send them to us each week. But yeah, it makes it fun and definitely our favorite segment of the show. So we always get some good laughs and have some good discussions. So let's go ahead. We'll move on to Week 9 game predictions. So quite a few good games this week. So I'll kick it off here. Wasion 6-2 at Archbold 7-1. Wasion's coming off a big win against Delta and a last-second win, to put it at that. And they've kind of figured things out with their new quarterback Parsons and their wide receivers. Again, one of the better wide receiving corps in the area with Rodriguez, Smith, and Jude Armstrong. But I think Archbold and Coach Dominic, it's at Archbold, tough place to win at. Yep. I'm going the Blue Streaks, and I think they beat Wasion by at least a few scores.
This game, like a month ago, I think we would have taken Archbold by probably 2-3 touchdowns. But with Coach Moore has Wasion playing a lot better, it should be a competitive game. I took Archbold.
Bryce obviously sticking with his Archbold boys.
Yeah, I was never really a fan of Archbold before, but they're my top team in the area right now, so I'll never pick against them. I'm a Blue Streak at heart. So.
Yeah.
Send him a T-shirt.
Yeah, pull up the picture.
Bryce's head is so big from all the stuff he's been seeing on social media, so Bryce loves it. So
somebody from the Archbold football program, send the poor kid a T-shirt.
Yeah.
All right.
Give me all the apparel.
If Wasion would play at Wasion, I think that makes it a little bit different game. I still think Archbold wins, but Archbold at home is, like you said, just tough to win there. So Archbold for me.
And AJ had Archbold, and he sent his picks in from Cancun, so we're going with that. So Archbold from all of us. So next game, Patrick Henry 4-4 at Delta 5-3. This last half of the season, we've kind of seen Patrick Henry. They've fallen apart a little bit. They've taken some losses. But again, they're playing Delta, and Delta's coming off a tough heartbreaker loss to Wasion. I think this is a good game. I was kind of back and forth, Patrick Henry's got some good weapons. They got the Johnson kid at wide receiver. They got Nashmeyer at quarterback. They've got some good linemen. They got the Behrman kid. I think, but you look at Delta, they got Wolford, they got Briar Knapp. They're just a ground and pound team. I think I'm going to go with Delta this game, and I kind of thought long and hard, but I think it's a good game, so I'm going Delta on this one.
Yeah, I looked at this game for a couple days before I actually picked it right before we started tonight. It's funny you said that because I had that. Nashmeyer's a name we actually haven't seen on our top performers list lately. Well, lately, like 2 weeks. He's been on that most of the year, and I think this is a game he bounces back, and I'm taking Patrick Henry.
I'm taking Delta. I think Delta's last game there where they only scored 3 points kind of just about went the other way, but I think Delta's going to win.
Yeah, so I guess I have my former defensive coordinator, Aaron George, a few friends from Patrick Henry, so I have some connections there, but I hope they can use this as motivation, but I'm going with the Panthers. Go Delta.
And AJ went with Patrick Henry as well, following Keith, and I don't know. Did AJ actually pick these, or are these all Keith's picks too?
I literally just copied it over. I thought, well, I'll just fill
Did
them
ya?
in. And AJ texted me back and said, hey, I just looked at all those picks. He goes, did you pick those for me? And I'm like, he goes, but I'm good with everything. I'm like, okay.
Well, it looks like no matter what, AJ's going to remain at least one game behind Keith. So because AJ's been right behind Keith, and he's one win behind him.
Be a Week 10 showdown.
Yeah, no kidding. I know. So that one we were pretty split on. Next game, Evergreen 2-6 at Liberty Center 8-0. Again, we kind of talked about Liberty Center before, and they are rolling. Obviously, we think they're a state title contender. They haven't really slowed down at all, and I don't see too many flaws in their program. Again, Coach Karchner still doing good things over there in Evergreen, but they've kind of the fire's kind of burnt down just a little bit. They're 2-6 now, but still they're competing in some games. But I think Liberty Center takes this one big, especially being at a complex and at home like Liberty Center is.
Yeah, plus they're honoring. I'm pretty sure they're honoring the state team this Friday night too. But Tigers all the way.
Yeah, easy win for Liberty Center.
Yep, I agree. Tigers.
And AJ had Liberty Center too. Next game, Ottawa Glandorf 1-7 at Defiance 5-3. We've talked about Ottawa Glandorf this year and how they've just been so inconsistent, and they come close to these wins, and they play these really good teams tough. They're playing at Defiance, and I think Coach Travis Cooper gets the Bulldogs turned around again. I think that loss last week to Salina kind of woke up the program. Get the offensive and defensive line straightened up, get some things figured out. Your red zone offense has got to be better. You got to punch it in. But Ottawa Glandorf's definitely not a team I want to be playing late in the season. So I think Defiance wins, but I think Ottawa Glandorf could give them a little bit of a challenge. But I'm going Defiance Bulldogs.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, Logan. I think Coach Cooper's going to have Defiance refocused and ready for battle Friday night, taking the Dogs.
Yep, Defiance for me too.
Defiance as well.
And AJ had Defiance, so Defiance from all of us. Next game, Edgerton 7-1 at Tenora 5-3. We've kind of seen Tenora slip here a little bit as of late. And Edgerton is coming into town, and we know that it's going to be the Corey Everett show on offensive side of the ball, and he's a heck of an athlete. So I think if Tenora's defense can tune in him and stop Corey Everett's, I think that's what Edgerton's offense, that's the heart and soul of the offense. And we know Tenora's defense can be good. If they can stop that, they could come out with a win. But I think that's going to be too tough for Tenora, and I'm going to go Edgerton this week.
Yeah, I took Edgerton, but would I be surprised if Tenora won? Not really. Tenora's faced a quarterback like Everett several times this year and actually have had very good success. So, but taking Edgerton.
I also picked Edgerton.
Tenora, I took Tenora. I think Javen Gaines is going to be a factor in this one big time. I think he's going to be a big factor in shutting down Everett. So I think I went with Tenora.
Which I'd feel more confident if Gavin didn't break his.
Right.
Yeah, which
Definitely.
that was a big factor in me picking Edgerton with Gavin in the backfield.
Yep.
Valid point.
All right, let's go to the next game. Southview 6-2 at Napoleon 3-5. I think this is a winnable game for Napoleon, but I don't know that they get over the top. I know Southview had a tough loss or a tough win. They barely beat Bowling Green. But at the end of the day, I think Southview comes out with a win. I'm going Southview.
Yeah, Coach Swery has Napoleon playing well the last month, but I took Southview.
Well, I have Southview wrote down, but I guess everyone else is picking them, so I'm going to go Napoleon with the benefit of the doubt.
That's the Bryce that's never here.
Yeah. No surprise from any of us. So
I went Southview.
Yeah, I don't know enough about them to pick against either. So. And
AJ had Southview, so Bryce, like usual, is going against the grain. So next game, Ayersville 6-2 at Wayne Trace 3-5. We know Ayersville is coming off a loss to Antwerp, but again, they have a lot of talent, and we got to see Wayne Trace play and Ayersville play. I think Ayersville, they go into Wayne Trace and they come away with a pretty easy win. So I'm going the Pilots.
Yeah, I don't think Coach Mickey's going to have a letdown here for the Pilots. I'm not saying last week was a letdown, but they're not going to drop two straight. So Pilots all the way.
Yep, I also have Ayersville.
Boy, after I looked at this, they're playing at Wayne Trace, and I know AJ mentioned several times the Wayne Trace curse, the turnovers, and everything else.
Yeah.
And, it could a turnover battle ensue, and Wayne Trace picked this one up, but I want to stick with Ayersville, but I think Wayne Trace might sneak this one out.
Yeah, we saw them battle Edgerton when they came into town too. So
Yeah.
I think it's a possibility.
If turnovers happen, I think you're going to see Wayne Trace.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be a blowout.
And AJ had Ayersville as well, so Ayersville from all of us. Next game, Fairview 0-8 at Hicksville 1-7. Again, I do not think this is going to be a 50-point blowout like the hot take said. I think I like what I'm seeing out of Hicksville as of late, and especially the way they played Ayersville. They played them really tough. I'm going to go with the Hicksville Aces, but I think Fairview definitely has a shot at winning this game, so I'm going the Aces.
Hicksville and Fairview, yeah. Coach Lucas Smith and the Aces should come away with a win.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Hicksville also.
Hicksville for me.
And AJ had Hicksville, so Hicksville from all of us. Next game, Elida 4-4 at Van Wert 7-1. I think Van Wert. I think they come away and win this game big. So I don't think there's much to this one, and I'm going to take Van Wert Cougars on this.
Yeah, Cougars all the way.
Yeah, I'm Van Wert.
Yep, same here, Van Wert.
And AJ had Van Wert too. Next game, North Central 6-2 at Summerfield, Michigan 3-4. Again, North Central, we got to get on the phone and talk to a player, Cameron Laney, which was awesome to see and hear what's going on over there in Pioneer, Ohio, which that's great that they're having some success. I think they're going to go ahead and they're going to pick up this win. Another easy win for North Central, especially like we've kind of talked about, like the level of talent from Ohio to Michigan football, at least from our neck of the woods and area. Yep. So I'm going North Central.
Yeah, it was actually nice to hear from Cameron. That was a nice interview, and like we talked about, compared Ohio football to Michigan football, and that's exactly what Cameron said. So, taking North Central.
I pick North Central.
Eagles for me.
And AJ had North Central too. So North Central from all of us. Next game, Lakota 2-6 at Eden 4-4. I think this is a revenge game for Eden and head coach Bob Olin and the Bombers. I think they come out and they throw up at least a 50-piece or more on Lakota, especially after coming off a tough loss last week. So I'm going the Bombers.
Yeah, I expect the same from Coach Olin and Eden, taking Eden.
Eden also.
Yep, go Bombers.
And AJ had Eden too. Next game, Montpelier 2-6 at Margaretta 6-2. Again, a tough matchup for the Locomotives, especially the program that Margaretta that's coming in 6-2. I think they're just going to be a little too much for Montpelier, but I'm going Margaretta this game.
Following you up, Logan, taking Margaretta.
Margaretta.
And AJ had Margaretta too. So Margaretta from all of us in that game. Next game, Manchester 2-6 at Hilltop 1-7. Again, we don't know too much about Manchester. We know that they're 2-6. Or we think so. I believe I might have had someone send in that their record may be different. I'll have to look into that. But nonetheless, we know that they could possibly have a chance at this. I think that here it is. They are 2-6. I had them originally at 0-8. So that record is correct. Again, I'm gonna pull for Hilltop Cadets. I think being at home, they got to get their second win of the season. So nothing else less than that. They're at home. They have home field advantage. And Hilltop's played some quality teams throughout the year, so they know what it's like to play some tougher teams. And I'm going the Cadets in this one.
Yeah, Hilltop's one of those teams I think we've all pulled for every week. Just kind of hope they win, just for the program and the success moving forward, but taking Manchester.
I think it'll be close, but I'm going to try and go Hilltop on this one.
I went Hilltop for their last win. Let's see if I can get them for number 2.
All right. Next game, Crestview 4-4 at Ada 2-6. And AJ's last pick was Manchester. So didn't want to forget AJ's pick. Anyways, Crestview and Ada. Crestview's rolling here lately, and I think they're kind of figuring things out. And I think Crestview's going to come away with this win, and they're going to be 5-4 going into next week. So I'm going Crestview.
hopefully it's the Crestview that we've seen recently and
Yeah.
not that little slump they've had. But taking the Knights.
I have Crestview.
Crestview for me.
And AJ had Crestview. Next game, Columbus Grove 6-2 at Spencerville 1-7. Columbus Grove has constantly been a top 5 team for us this year. I think they go into Spencerville and they win this one big. I think they come away pretty easily. So I'm going Columbus Grove.
Yep. Columbus Grove.
Columbus Grove.
Bulldogs.
And AJ had Columbus Grove. So Columbus Grove from all of us. Next game, Lipsick 3-4 at Allen East 7-1. And Allen East is paving the way for the NWC conference. Again, Lipsick has kind of struggled here. I know, like we've said too, we had really high expectations for Lipsick. They may come out and make it a ball game, but I just don't see it. We know Allen East is pretty good, and they had that tough fought win against Columbus Grove. I think Allen East is just going to be too gritty and too good for Lipsick. I'm going Allen East on this one.
That's just probably one of those games we talked about during the preseason, looking at this game, and now, oh boy. Yeah, taking Allen East.
Allen East.
Allen East.
And AJ had Allen East. Last 11-man game here. Bryan 4-4 at Swanton 1-7. I know we've kind of talked about the inconsistencies with Bryan at times, what team you're going to get here or there, but I think they go into Swanton, and just the way the Swanton's been this season, I think the talent's down a little bit, and I think Bryan goes into town and they get another win, and they end up pushing their record to a winning record at 5-4. I'm going Bryan.
Yep. Golden Bears.
Brian.
And AJ had Bryan. 2 8-man games here. Taconcha 6-1 at Holgate 5-2. Say that 10 times fast. I kind of looked at some of the teams, and obviously we really don't know much about Taconcha other than looking at what the record was and maybe a couple scores here and there. Holgate's coming off a tough loss to Toledo Christian, which absolutely beat them down last week. But I'm going to go Taconcha. I think they're going to be just a little too much for Holgate.
Yeah, just doing a tiny bit of research on this. I'm just matching up numbers. I took Taconcha.
Yeah, Taconcha.
I went with Holgate. I think see what Holgate can do. Maybe they can rebound here and pick up win number 6.
And AJ went with Taconcha too. So Tony was the only one that went Holgate. So possibly if Holgate wins, that could be enough to push Tony up. So.
Yeah, never know.
Now, last game here, Danbury, 2-4 at Stryker, 4-3. I think Strikers, we've seen what they're capable of, and I think they're going to come out this week. And I know they had a loss against Fort Wayne, but they're going to come out this week. And as Keith would say, Barnum and the boys over there in Stryker are going to come out and pull out a win. So I'm going Stryker.
I took Barnum and the boys. Stryker.
Striker.
And AJ had Stryker. Well, that concludes our week 9 game predictions. Closing thoughts from you guys.
No, I'm glad to be back. It was fun out in Denver, but I'm glad to be back, and I'll be back up there with you guys on Friday night. I kind of missed it.
Yeah, myself, I'm actually looking forward to seeing Sonora and Edgerton this week. See what the Rams have to offer.
Yeah, I'm just glad I got in for a podcast to make my picks and be present for them.
And actually, one of the hot takes was Bryce needs to join the podcast live on video. And
I know
that was one that I didn't put on there, but nonetheless, here he is. So that hot take was taken care of. So we got to sneak Bryce into a podcast while AJ was on his honeymoon. So
awesome.
Anyways, closing thoughts for me. I'm just excited for playoff football. You know, you really get to see some of the better teams in Northwest Ohio compete. And again, I can't wait for Division 5 Region 18 to go out there and see what they can do, because holy smokes, there are some good teams in that region. And there's some good teams in this area, and I want to see what they can do when they're on the highest level and things are on the line. Your season's on the line. It's win or go home at that time. So I'm getting excited for that. Also excited too. Things are starting to look more like fall. I noticed today out back at the clinic, the leaves are starting to change colors, leaves are starting to fall, weather's starting to dip down a little bit.
Yeah.
So, it's true football weather. So,
some exciting games coming up here the last couple of weeks. So
a lot of meaningful games too.
We talk about it every week. Get out there and support your teams. And if your team's not doing so well, go support somebody else's team.
Yeah.
But go out, get out there and watch the kids play on Friday night.
Definitely.
Yep, definitely.
And that's something I'll always close out the podcast with. Get out, support the kids. They deserve it. They work hard. It just makes the experience so much better when you get a stadium full of fans. I mean, you get close to like those sellout crowds or whatnot. I mean, that's just awesome. Get out there. And like Keith said, it doesn't cost a fortune. You don't have to go every week, but get out there and have a good time. It's something fun to do on Friday nights. So.
Yeah, it's great. And like you guys, Bryce just graduated. I'm sure he misses the Friday nights under the lights. I mean, it's if you're a parent, take your kid out. I mean, it's don't have to stay for the whole game, stay to half, but I guarantee you next week your kid will want to go back and experience it. So
I mean, honestly too, like I can remember when I was a kid, I mean, going to those football games, it's like, man, you always looked up to those kids so much. And I truly believe that's where like your good programs start. I mean, your parents bring you when you're young and you get a little taste of it when you're a kid and you grow up to be like, I want to go out there and be one of those kids.
Yeah,
so.
me getting to watch you.
Yeah.
It's a funny story. When I was listening to the Black Swamp, their game cast, I try to listen to everybody, honestly, at work. I'll just turn them on just to see what everybody's doing. But Coach Strock was talking about the Ayersville 86 team, and he's like, my favorite player back then was Denny Martin. I looked up to that kid. I actually worked with Denny for a long time, so it's just kind of neat to see like Coach Strock as a little kid looking up to Denny on that 86 Ayersville playoff team. So it's stuff like that. Just, you bring him to a game and you never know what's going to happen. Like, look at Coach Strock. I mean, Coach Napoleon, he's got a son that's coaching at Bowling Green. He's, retired from Napoleon. Now he's calling football games on Friday night, probably because his dad took him to a football game out of the blue. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. So grab your kids and take them out.
All right. Well, guys, that concludes our podcast. We would like to thank all of our sponsors: Three-Chord Bat and Stevens Body Shop, Tenor Rams Live, Jimenez Basketball Academy, Fairchild Family Chiropractic, NWO Basketball, and Crystal Vasquez of Amerimaid Realty. Again, we would like to give a special thanks to Jeff Batt for allowing us to use his amazing new facility at Bat and Stevens Body Shop for today's podcast and for the rest of the season as well. Stay tuned for the next NWO Sports Podcast in the near future, and thanks for watching.